boys and girls. I have a really cute book to share with you today. And throughout the book, I put some sticky notes with some questions that we could ask and for you to try to answer on your own and maybe even write down to just get that comprehension practice in along with some writing skills. So without further ado, this story is called The Lion Inside, and perhaps some of you remember it from last year. If you do, that should make your predictions later very easy. Here we go. The Lion Inside by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. Just have to make sure you can see it here. Back up. There we go. The Lion Inside. In a dry, dusty place where the sand sparkled gold stood a mighty flat rock, all craggy and old. And under that rock, in a tiny full house, lived the littlest, quietest, meekest brown mouse. He was so very tiny, so incredibly small, that nobody noticed him ever, at all. Ow! Ouch! He got stepped on and sat on. He missed out on stuff, ignored and forgotten. His mouse life was tough. And I have a sticky note here. And it says, how does this character feel throughout the story? So something that we've been working on in our first grade room is how the character feels throughout the story, how that could change, and putting ourselves in the position of that character. So right now, he's looking pretty sad, pretty lonely, pretty forgotten. Let's see if it stays that way throughout the whole story. Meanwhile, far above, on top of the rock, times were quite different. It was Lion O'Clock. This huge, toothy creature made sure everyone saw how important he was by how loud he could roar. He was head of the pack. He was shouty and proud. He loved flexing his biceps and wowing the crowd. Yes, all were impressed by this mighty king cat. If only, thought Mouse, I could be more like that. All right, here's where my sticky note prediction is. It says, what 3 things do you think could happen next? Write them down. Be sure that when you write them down, you're putting spaces in between your words. You have capital at the beginning. The rest of your letters should be lowercase unless there's a name in there or I by itself. Periods at the end of each sentence, and to go back and read what it says to make sure all your words are in order, okay? So feel free to pause the video and write 3 things that you think could happen next. Keep going. Then, late one dark night, in his tiny mouse bed, the cleverest thought popped into his head. He leaped up in the darkness and held up a paw. I've got it, he said. What I need is a roar. Roar. I mean, what if this mouse was the weeniest squeak? Were a little more grrr and a little less meek? Well, he'd still be the smallest of fuzzy brown mice, but he'd make friends and join in, and life would be nice. Yes, thought the mouse. I must find out how. I will learn how to roar, and I will learn it now. But it wouldn't be easy. There was only one beast who could teach him this thing, but might make him a feast. It was time to be strong. Take a chance. After all, forever was such a long time to feel small. Here's my sticky note. It says, how is being small and feeling small different? So he looks very small, but it says, forever was such a long time to feel small. What does that mean? So, he made himself brave, and he thought like a winner. He set off for the top, hoping not to be dinner. It felt like the scariest thing he could do. But if you want things to change, you first have to change you. The farther he climbed, the closer he got to the slumbering lion reclining on top. Then, at last, as he stood on his tippity toes, he found himself suddenly nose to nose. Ahem. Gulp. Pardon me. Wake up, Mr. Lion. You've got company. Squeak. Mr. Lion, what I've come to you for is... Squeak. Do you think you could teach me your roar? A silence befell that twinkling plain. Lion opened his eyes and puffed out his mane. Time went so slowly, it felt like a week. Then he opened his mouth and he let out an... eek! The lion curled up in a terrified ball. He didn't like this, not one bit at all. Don't hurt me, he whimpered. Oh, try to be nice. While this mighty great lion was frightened of mice. Don't worry, Mouse peeped. I'm here as a friend. Let's hang out together. Be pals to the end. Here's my sticky note question. Is there something you're afraid of? How could you overcome that fear? What could you do to not be afraid anymore? No, that poor lion. He was so big and tough. He's afraid of that little mouse. That was a magical moment for sure. When the mouse didn't feel at all small anymore, he had found his true voice and learned to speak out. And for that, you don't need to roar or to shout. And from that day and always, the two were a pair. They both liked that rock better. Now that rock was to share. The mouse, while still little, felt big in his head. And Lion? He still roared, but with laughter instead. Yes, that day they both learned that no matter your size, we all have a mouse and a lion inside. All right. First sticky note says, what do you think it means that we all have a lion and mouse inside? And then to kind of extend that a little further, what was the author trying to teach you in this story? feel free to write that down too, just to get some writing practice in there.